Hi there, this is Chris from MoneyHub, and this video overviews common interview questions. So we get asked this a little bit about, what should I be preparing for a job interview? What questions will they ask? We put together a comprehensive guide to kind of walk you through it, but I thought it would just be helpful to make a short summary to better explain, what you need to know. So my plan is just to go through 15 of the most common interview questions, make some comments on those and then just talk about some preparation steps for a job interview and then some facts about job interviews. And along the way, I'll just make some comments from my personal experience and just things that we've observed as well. So we keep this fairly up to date. It's not so much likely to change. We just want to be as comprehensive as possible. So if you do have anything that you'd like to contribute, please just give us an email, send us an email. We're on the contact page, and then you can also contact us through YouTube down below or send us something through Facebook. Without further ado, I'm just going to now narrate these 15 just to give some added context to them. So the first question being, tell me about yourself. What they're asking for here is really not like, tell me about yourself and everything that, you like and you don't like and everything, like, a whole bunch of waffle. They're really looking for specific things tailored to, the job description. So it's really like it's about you as an employee, not you, the person, and, your whole background and, life story. So talk about your interests, of course, talk about, your pastimes outside of work, but really kind of orientate that towards what the job is. Uh, it's not an invitation to spend, to be self-indulgent. It really is just like aligning what you are or who you are, sorry, to the role. So hopefully that makes sense. Practice out a few things, of course. But for me, if it was like, tell me about yourself, I'd like, right, well, I'm a financial journalist, and my background is like investment banking, and then before that, it was like accounting, and that would be if I was applying for a job, within that kind of financial space. If I wasn't, if I was doing some volunteer work, then I would, or sorry, I was applying for like a volunteer role, then I would talk about, my advocacy in the like financial resources area, and working with a whole bunch of charities with regards to like financial like equipment and financial like awareness. So you have to kind of tailor it to what the job is. So yeah, I'm not trying to make this video self-indulgent. It's just, what is the job, and then how does you as a person and you as like a professional sort of relate to that. So that's the answer, or that's some sort of added guidance there. Now, the question, what do you know about the organization? This is really, really like a great question to get, because the more you know, and it's not the case of a fact dump or just a sort of regurgitation of a website, the more you can be specific and talk to, that answer, then, the much better impression that you'll make. So more or less, what do you know about the organization? The answer is what they do, the products they service, the products and services they offer, and why they're different to the competitors. And then sort of adding to that, you can talk about, sort of news in the industry, what the company's done, differently, and things like that. The best thing you can do is really look at like the news section on Google. So if you were to type in, if you were going for a job interview at, say, a retailer or like anything, you could just put, on the search, just go to the news section. So for example, if I've typed in Money Hub here and just go to the news, and then you can see, recent news that's, Money Hub's been mentioned. So you can, feed it from there and basically get some ideas. So that's what that's what I would do. Just see their news information. The website says one thing, but the more information that you have that's relevant and you can actually make comments on that, the better that will go. So that's a really golden question if it comes up quite early, because it gives you a really good chance to make a strong impression. Now, why do you want to work for us? This is also a brilliant question to get. Really, a trick of winning this is talking about like what you know about the company, and why that really interests you, and that can be like the clients that they work with, the products they have, you know, what is it that makes this company so great, that or this organization so great, and how does that relate to you? So you can also talk about, the management. Glassdoor is a good place to get, we've linked to it here. It's a good place to get some sort of background understanding on how the organization works, its management, its CEO, things like that. And then also, your focus, as I say here, is always to look at the employer's needs. But you need to intersect that with your own motivations, and basically, if you can say your company or this company like is going to provide great career opportunities and huge learning and things like that, and then why it will, like what is your job and why that will create learning for you and the ability to upskill and sort of diversify or take on new challenges within the organization, then it's gonna come across quite strong. So you have to be natural. You have to be like genuinely excited. Certainly, I've been to job interviews in the past. This is many years ago, where I just had no excitement, and these questions would come up, and of course, you don't get a job offer. So, the more you can talk about the organization with a real sort of empathy and feel, then and love, then that's just going to be a really strong result. So once again, something kind of similar. What can you bring to the organization? This is really a great chance here to just talk about all the skills you have and how specifically that's going to relate to your employer or your potential employer. So it's the skills and then the company and then you make the connection, and that will strongly convey why you're going to be a suitable or a great candidate for the job. And then you can also talk about your passion for the industry, what you know about it, the fact that you are obsessed or fanatical or something like that about delivering results, and just your overall experience, and why you are sort of dedicated to coming in and working as hard as you can, and with and working as smart as you can as well. So really just sort of I bring that in because the job advert is going to talk about what skills that you need and what experience you need. So make sure you cover that off, pretty pretty blatantly, pretty sort of obviously, so that box is ticked, and then just focus on sort of your overall enthusiasm and your overall love for the industry, and yeah, things like that. Now, next up is the weaknesses. This is a great question. Strengths, fine, that's quite common, but weaknesses, this is a really, really good test. So the answer here, or sorry, the suggestion here, would be to look at something that you aren't that strong with and talk about how you have kind of improved on that or recovered on that. So in this example, it's like public speaking. So you're nervous about that, but you've taken on courses, or you've joined a Toastmasters academy, or sorry, or chapter or something like that, or just kind of these things to show, well, these are my weaknesses, but I improve them, I'm trying to make them strengths, rather than just say, wow, I'm weak at, timeliness or something like horrendous. Because I know that, I mean, no one would actually say that, but, it's really about displaying what your weaknesses are and shaping them into positives and, learning and development. So strengths, much easier to answer, but at the same time, it's got to be answered, properly. So look at what the job interview is asking for and make sure that your strengths align with that. That's really the best way to approach that, and yeah, that way then you're covering everything that needs to be covered. Now, this isn't so common for everybody, but if there are gaps in your work history, that will come up because they do stick out. And it's right for someone to ask that who's interviewing you. So, yeah, as I said, previously, redundancies or anything like that due to COVID-19, that's not so red flaggy. But then, you just have to be, you have to be prepared to explain exactly what your absence was, and like why, and And it's going to be a case of just being completely honest. So whatever the situation, being made redundant for whatever reason, health issues, meaning that you've had to take some time off, you just have to be completely honest. Otherwise, it's just, there'll be more questions than answered, than answers, and then that creates some difficulty. So really, just be completely upfront and don't frame it defensively. Don't be sensitive about it. Just be completely honest. This next question, tell me an achievement that you're proud of. It's quite a good one to kind of land mid-interview. It kind of just breaks up the kind of seriousness of it all. What we say here is really just be completely honest and be completely genuine. Don't come up with a fake or a sort of false answer, because it may sound good, but the reality is you just want to take something that's completely out of work and go with something that's friendly and sort of very, very honest. So for example, taking challenges as part of some sort of fundraising event, some sort of entrepreneurial achievement, in the past, learning new languages, musical interests, musical instruments, and then actually you can also use work things like completing projects that save the company money and things like this. Just choose one and make sure it's properly formulated. And we've got a great link down below to theinterviewguys.com, and they have a very useful guide to answering this question, because there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But the more, as I say, it's got to be completely genuine and properly polished, but not sort of fake. So hopefully that helps. And then going on to this, why should we hire you? That's a great question, which can put you on the spot unless you're prepared for it. Now, what the answer really needs to be is like what makes you valuable and what sort of motivates you, because the business needs to bring in people that will actually benefit it. It's not in the business of hiring seat fillers or people just to add to resources so they can use budget for jobs that they've set aside for. So you really need to look at what your specific skills are, why you're an absolutely great catch. So qualifications, why are they good? Why are they relevant? You could talk about that. The fact that you may have been given more more responsibility. At your last job, and every few months you get more and more people to manage, things like this. And saying things like that you're on a fast track to be a director or a manager. That always sounds really good. And then also you're trained in it and experienced in specific things which are relevant to the company. So these are all about unique selling points, and you've got to be succinct about that. But I would have a list of 3 to 5 really strong points to make you stand out. Kind of a related question to this is, what can you offer that other candidates can't? So this is going to come down to talking about specific skills that you have, project work that you've done, things that you've been successful with, and as an overall summary, why that makes you the number one choice. So do have a think about that. Just put together some ideas around successes and things that you've been proud of in the past, and and sort of combine it in with your strengths and your achievements, and the way that you're currently working, or the opportunities that you've had there, and just sell it to the person that asked that question. And then this typical question comes up not that often now, but it has kind of come up in the past: where do you see yourself in 5 years? The answer isn't obviously like in some other job or anything like that. The answer is something to do with the company that you're interviewing. Hopefully, like promoted a lot more, like advanced a lot more in your career, and you just have to show that you're really interested in what you're currently applying for. They're not hiring people to sit there to work there for 12 months. They're not hiring people there to seat fill or spend 2 3 years and spend a year of that time looking for another job. They want long-term commitment. And so you've really just got to talk about like your experience, what you like about, the company and that you're interviewing for, and why you think that you'll be there in 5 years, and sort of relating it to where the company's going and what you can offer. Now, the next question is, what would you do in the first 2 weeks in the job? So, this isn't that common, but it is quite a good question, and it's certainly one that you can prepare a solid answer for. So, what they want to know by asking this is what you got, like what you're going to achieve, and how you're going to work, and how is that going to contribute to the company. So, if you are serious about the job, then the answer should come naturally. A lot of people usually have a plan, when they let's start a job, and they know that they want to get ahead and they want to, learn as much as possible. So the answers here that is kind of suggested as a good response, but certainly I want to consider is, what would I do in the first 2 weeks? I would like make notes and fully document the existing processes so I can let coworkers focus on their work and not distract them unwillingly. And that sounds like a little bit vague, or like, well, okay, you're going to document everything. How long is that going to take? But then I would say things like I take voice memos and I just get an understanding and I make sure I understand it the first time round, or at least I'll have it locked down by the second because I'll be asking questions having properly reviewed it. So you just want to be as like efficient as possible rather than being like, oh, well, I'll shadow somebody and hopefully it works out, but it may not, and then I'll be a nuisance to everybody else. So you've just got to come in there with like a hard, like a hard approach. And then, the second point here that we've used is familiarize myself with the team, the clients, and the business unit or whatever I'm working in. So make sure that you're known to everyone without being overbearing, and then learn the systems to upskill. And that's really looking at YouTube, looking at a whole bunch of different ways to get really on, like switched on quite quickly, so that you're up to speed and you're not spending the first 2 months trying to get trying to get things together, when while that is normal to get familiar with a job, is people can take up to 6 months. We just want to present an option that's like, great, if we hire this person, they are not going to drag me down, or they're not going to be a liability or a time thief to everybody else. So that's really, what the answer is. And if you can even shape an answer like that into some of the other things, like, how do you work, or what are your strengths? And this is, you could also comment around strengths of like organization and learning processes. Like anyone who comes along and says, I learn processes well and I don't have to bug you, is the subtext, is going to be a very, very strong, you know, recommendation to a second interview, or other things going well. So the next question is, what kind of working environments do you like best? This is quite interesting because every workplace is different, and Glassdoor is going to tell you a lot about that. At the same time, you can see what the company is trying to present, with any company videos they have on YouTube or anything like that. So if you can just do a big deep dive into the company, scroll through Glassdoor, just get up to speed there, then you can kind of talk to what people say about the company. So if it's a fun company with an open like a sort of environment and things like that, and flexible, then you can say, well, that's the kind of working environment I like. And then if it's a very sort of desk focused, very strict on certain things, then you can say, well, this is why you like that. Unfortunately, you do have to kind of mold what the existing status quo is, or so what the status quo of the employer is, to that answer. But hopefully, that can come that can come along as quite genuine. Now, the next question here is what motivates you, and you've got to be enthusiastic when you answer this. So talking about your love or passion for the industry is really, really helpful. And then saying that, it keeps evolving, what you like about these type of workplaces, or this workplace, and specifically your current job, what you like about that, and just a general high value, high energy sales pitch there about like what motivates you is going to be the best way to do it. So if you just say, what motivates me, and it's a bit lackluster, it's like, well, what motivates me? Well, I really like, working with a team, and I really like, making sure that, everyone's always having fun. It doesn't really position you strongly in terms of, what you're going to achieve. So talk about, what you've achieved in the past and why you're always looking to go forward, and that's just going to be a very, very strong way to answer that question. Salary expectations, these come up a lot, these questions, because right now, of course, and in the past, there's been skill shortage, there's been a labor shortage, so things are they're getting more expensive to hire people, and so people just don't want to overpay. And the answer really for this is, well, I did some research and I found that comparable roles are, etc., etc. And you have to be realistic, but also don't undersell yourself. If you do have any questions, we strongly suggest going to the Reddit personal finance uh, page, and then you can just register there if you don't have a Reddit account, and you can post a question about the job that you're looking for, and what do you think, if it's if you're not from the industry, or if you're switching into it, what do you think, what do you think I should be asking for? This is my experience, and this is the job that I'm going for. Obviously, don't link to the job, but just sort of talk about it with enough details to get some help. It is a situation where sometimes you don't have a choice of what the salary will be. You can negotiate it to a degree, but the ball's in their court. So just be diplomatic with that. But the more data that you have, and by saying, well, the research that I've done shows that comparable roles pay this, that will help you kind of meet a more common ground. Now, how do you deal with difficult people? That is very, very interesting question. What happens is that, there's always difficult people in a workplace. I don't know of any places where that wouldn't exist. But a good answer really is just to talk about a project that you were on, and then how you dealt with a difficult person, and it was all very amicable. And it's not about you winning and them looking bad or them having a negative experience. It's how you bring in some positivity and some approach, or your approach, to make it all kind of congruent, and the difficult person not neutralized, but everyone compromised, and everyone kind of moving in the same direction. So we've done a little summary here, and that's just one example. But this is really like a good chance just to put something together that's real, and make it a response that would work well for the organization that you're applying for. Now, finally, here, do you have any questions for us? This is a great question, and my view here is just questions like, what do you like most about your job here? And like, what's your favorite client? If it's a service thing, what's your favorite product? If it's a product company, and what opportunities do you see for the business in the coming year? Those type of questions show that you actually care, and it's not going to be answered in a one or two sentences. There's a little bit of a discussion to be had, so it opens it up to make it quite friendly. Whatever you ask, make sure it's relevant to the business, and that's going to give you, the best chance of, leaving a very good impression. Please don't go into things like holiday leave, sick leave, working from home policies straight up. Of course, the working from home policies can be talked about, sort of after you progress. But if it sounds like, you want to work from home all the time, and you're inflexible about what days you can be at the office, and asking about that, then, that's going to be some problems in terms of just leaving like a good impression. In most cases, not always, but I think generally, I think people expect those questions not to be asked straight up. And then for additional considerations, of course, there's the Treaty of Waitangi, and that's a really sort of valuable thing to be aware with, especially if you're not from New Zealand as well. So we've got some guides here which we thoroughly suggest having a read through. And then next up, just to kind of conclude on this guide, 3 common job interview preparation steps. So the first step, of course, would be plan and prepare. And that's really about making sure you're not behind when you do this. I remember doing this back in the day at uni for summer internships, actually, even before that, working in retail and just putting in the time to plan out something and make sure that you know what you're applying for. A friend of mine, showed up to a job interview. Why do you want to, what specifically about this job is, is something that you want to do? And he's like, wow, actually, the PDF corrupted. So I actually don't really know too much about this job, but I think I'm gonna like it if I get it. I mean, I am friends with people like that, yes. Um, but yeah, so my comment there is just be very, very sort of thorough with your approach, and make sure that you're answering, like enough practice questions to get properly familiar and also relaxed with how you're going to approach the interview, and just get very familiar as well with who the organization is, and what they specialize in, and just be as clear as possible in your answers. So yeah, have a read through that. It's quite a useful sort of summary. And then step 2 is predict and practice behavioral questions. So as we've just gone through those, just have a read through there. I'm not going to go into too much detail. And of course, finally, staying natural throughout the job. Please don't just regurgitate or parrot answers. It's awful. It's absolutely awful to listen to, and it's awful to be part of it. Uh, Even doing it, it just doesn't work. It's not genuine, and you don't build up any type of relationship by doing that. So just be honest, and be hungry for information, ask questions back, and you have to look as though you're thinking, not just, thinking, oh, yes, I've answered that question in this, sorry, I practiced that question. Let me just give an answer that's kind of similar. So I've made some comments down below. It's worth having a look when you have a look at the guide. And then facts, really, because job interviews, they're not a situation that everyone, so they're not something that everyone likes to do all the time. People have their own jobs. They don't really look forward to doing them in most cases. That's not for everybody. But half the time, it's like, well, I've already got my own thing going, and we're short, or someone's quit, and I have to get somebody, and they have to be great, and I just want to then get back to my job and not have risk. So really, just be aware that the interviewer is likely very busy and needs to make a decision, and that's why you've got to come prepared. You've got to show that you're ready to go, that you're going to document, say, processes you're going to get very familiar very quickly, and that you're showing up on time, that you're not going to be a liability. Because if something happens, if someone gets hired and they're not good, then that reflects on the person that hired them. And as awful as that is, because people can trick people in job interviews, it's a big risk for someone hiring as well. So just be aware that the best result is when you feel a connection, or sorry, when the interviewer feels a connection to you, and knows that you, or has a belief that you're able to work independently, and can just hit the ground running without any sort of hand holding or things like that. Of course, you can always ask for support, but that's the most sort of valuable fact there, is that they are time poor and they need to hire somebody. Second to that, like another fact, is the job that you're interviewing for may be undefined, it may be brand new, and it may not have been properly even put together. So you need to bring as much information about the industry as you can, and look at the company and get an understanding of what's going on, and then why you think this role is suitable for you, and things that you can go, so, and where do you think the role will go. So sometimes job descriptions are quite brief. If you're working with a recruitment company, maybe they don't know too much, but just, if you don't have any questions, so if you don't know something about the job, then do ask at the interview. That shows that you're, very interested in it, rather than talking around what you don't know, because that shows that you actually don't really care. So sadly, hiring managers make judgments before you even start talking. So, that is just, I'm not going to go too much into that, but it is just, you just have to make the right impression straight away as early as possible. So have a read through some of our information there. And, another comment is the most qualified person doesn't always get the job. That is really, really true. I personally, I don't look when we're hiring at MoneyHub, but we don't look for people who are qualified. We look for the attitude, which I'm about to get onto next. And we look for the willingness, and we look for the people who have the ideas and what they can bring, not someone who's necessarily done financial journalism or has a degree in like journalism or anything like that. So be aware that just because someone is more qualified, or perhaps or possibly you see yourself as less qualified, does not mean that you're out of the running. And finally, the most important thing, and I wanted to leave it to last because if you've made it this far, this I promise is the most valuable tip. It all comes down to attitude. I've worked in enough places to know that it is the make or break of a career, and I have seen and heard some incredible things, and I know that the best attitude is gonna go the furthest, and that is really, really true in in all senses. Sometimes, the attitude, if you have a great attitude and the place is toxic, maybe it's not going to work as well. Maybe there are some limitations that you'll have. But generally, in any kind of normal environment, this best attitude, you're going to get talked about. People are going to like working with you. And the more helpful that you are, I just think back to my grad job at this accountancy firm, and when people came around and asked stuff, I'd be helpful. When grads or summer internships were there, like, and they have questions, I would answer. I would actually want to help. And so of course people then like realize that you are helpful, and they come back and ask you more stuff, and word gets around, versus someone who just ignores people and doesn't want to help. But the reality is those compounding positive comments get out there, and it reinforces your like your standing in the company or wherever the organization is that you work. So really just be positive, be helpful. There's some great people that you'll be working with, and you can work with even like better people if that's the thing you want to do too, by having the right attitude. And they will find you, and you'll be hunted out. So just be really, really great with the attitude, and everything will come from there. So thank you very much for watching this video. I know it is a big, intensive amount of information, but I've tried to just make it as simple as possible by breaking down the different interview questions, and things that you need to do to prepare, and then looking at the facts. So thank you very much. And if you have any comments, we're very responsive to YouTube comments, and so feel free to leave those down below. And we constantly update the guide, but the information here in this video doesn't so much change. Of course, it is a hard-coded video, but the guide may have like additional information as we go on, and like new sections. So be aware of that. That we're always there to improve it. And if you have any information that you think would be helpful to improve our guide, or any other guide that we work on, please let us know. You can contact us through the contact details on the MoneyHub website, and that's also linked below. Thank you very much.